if you can figure out what your life costs now, what it's likely to cost as you head into retirement, you've got a really good benchmark for figuring out what it's likely to cost as you continue through retirement.
How much money do I need to retire? Well, this is one of the most asked questions that I get. And while there's no one-size-fits-all answer, today's show will walk you through the strategies you need to calculate how much you need to retire and provide you with strategies to help you build a retirement plan for you. Joining me is my good friend, Jean Chatzky. She's the host of the Her Money podcast. Jean, welcome.
Thanks, Bob. Nice to be with you.
I am so happy that you're joining me to answer the most asked question that I get. And I'm sure it's one of the most asked questions that you get. How do I really know how much I need to retire?
And I think the only way that people can do this is to approach it individually. You and I can throw out rules of thumb until we are blue in the face. But what most people want in retirement is the ability to continue to live the life to which they've become accustomed. That life has a price tag. It's very obvious that a lot of people don't know what their life costs day to day, year in and year out. But if you can start there, if you can figure out what your life costs now, what it's likely to cost as you head into retirement, you've got a really good benchmark for figuring out what it's likely to cost as you continue through retirement. And we can go into how people's spending during retirement fluctuates on average.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that. But first, maybe you can address some of the misconceptions and maybe even the biggest misconception people have as they think about how much they need.
I think the biggest misconception people have is that life is going to get cheaper. People are retiring healthy these days. They are retiring for decades, not just years. And when you ask people what they want to do in retirement, most people I know have a very, very long list. It might be a bucket list, might be some other sort of a list, but it's a long list, and it contains a lot of exciting things that involve travel, that involve renovating their homes, that involve doing things with the people that they love and they care about, that involve supporting their adult children, maybe their grandchildren. All of those things cost money. And the misconception that you are going to all of a sudden, because you stop working, start spending 20 to 25% less than you spent the year before is, I think, going to mess a lot of people up.
Yeah. So when you think about when and how to estimate your retirement needs, I think the when is somewhat easy, right? It's hard to do this when you're in your 20s, 30s, maybe in your 40s. But as you get into your 50s and 60s, it gets a little bit easier maybe to estimate your retirement needs. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think you can look at how your money is being spent today and basically estimate that you're going to spend the same, at least in that first year or two of retirement. The folks at Chase have done some really interesting work on spending. They've looked at spending, and what they see is that there's actually a bump. The couple of years before retirement, a few years after retirement. And when they dig into what that bump is a result of, because they've got all the credit card data so they can dig into this, what they see is that it's really a combo of two things. It's travel. People put those important trips on their list for right around the time that they retire. They want to take them. They want to take them in a really nice way. So travel expenses go up, and so do home renovation expenses. We put off those things that we want to do to our homes until we're right around the time that we think that we're going to retire, because then we imagine that we will be home to enjoy those things. So there's a period of about 5 years right before and right after retirement that spending actually bumps up a little bit from what it had been before.
Yeah, I think J.P. Morgan Chase refers it to as lumpy spending around the
Yes.
retirement date. Yeah. So when you think about estimating retirement needs, there are a couple rules of thumb that you mentioned at the beginning that you're not fond of, but people are often told to try and replace 80% of their pre-retirement income in retirement, or to consider the 4% rule, withdrawal rule, as they think about how much money they might need to take out of their accounts to pay for their retirement lifestyle. I mean, for me, this is ultimately, when I think about the retirement spending, it's a row and column exercise. But is the 80% rule and the 4% rule a good place to at least start before you sort of dig into a spreadsheet?
80% can be a decent place to start. You have to think about what you don't have to replace, right? When you're looking at your income, you're looking at a lot of deductions, right? You're looking at all the money that you're saving for retirement. That's the one big expense that you don't have to replace once you get into retirement. So be very clear on how much of your money you've been saving and the fact that you no longer have to actually account for that. The 4% rule, look, we could debate the 4% rule for your entire show and where it lets people down and where it works. I do think as an approximate gauge of how much you'll be able to spend, thinking about what's the size of my nest egg, what's 4% of that, will that, in combination with Social Security, cover my outlay for the year? That's a pretty good number to get a grip on. But I think people focus far too much on the income side of things and not nearly enough on the spending kind of things, because what we're trying to do in retirement is replace the lifestyle, and the lifestyle has a cost.
Yeah. So when I think about the lifestyle, there's a couple things. There's essential expenses. There might be housing costs or transportation costs. And then there's the travel and the hobbies that perhaps you want to do that you never did when in your working years. And that may be for some an expense that's hard to calculate, right? I don't know whether my interest in photography or pottery or whatever, I just have no idea what it's going to cost me. How do you sort of like estimate
I
these
think
things?
you have to try. I think you actually have to put pen or pencil to paper, put your fingers on the keyboard, and you have to try to estimate what these things are gonna cost. Think about what a month might look like in retirement. Think about, put travel off to the side unless you think you'll do it every single month. But what is it gonna cost to belong to your gym? What is it going to cost to enroll in a class that you've been wanting to take at the local university? How much are your commuting expenses going to change if they are? What are you going to do for food? How often do you think you'll eat out? Is it the same as what you're doing now? Really try to get a sense of where your money is going to go and what the price tag for that is going to be. And then look at that nest egg, how much you've got from Social Security, tack on the 4%, and see if you're in the ballpark. And if you're not in the ballpark, that's when you have to adjust either the dates of your retirement, because you have to continue to work a little bit longer, and we know that working a little bit longer doesn't have to be a whole lot longer, but working a little bit longer can be a really powerful way to move the numbers on your retirement, because for every year that you delay retirement, you're delaying Social Security, you're giving money in your retirement accounts additional time to grow, you're delaying pulling money out of those retirement accounts. You may even be making additional contributions in a tax-deferred way to those retirement accounts. You add all of that together, and that's a very powerful tool that we have. Or you can think about, well, am I going to continue to work for pay once I'm retired in some way or another to supplement what I've got coming in?
So interesting, Gene. I just came back from my high school reunion, and they're opposite ends of the spectrum here. In one case, one of my friends is 7 years older than his wife. He's retired. She's not. He's golfing a lot. He's having the time of his life, and he doesn't worry that he's sort of out there on his own, retired. And in another case, a close friend is not retired, and his wife says to me that she never wants him to retire because she enjoys all the luxuries that his work income provides for them. So it's opposite ends of the spectrum, and I guess it means that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to anyone in this respect.
I think that's absolutely right. Retirement is a lot longer than it used to be. A lot of people dip in and out of retirement. They take on different gigs, different challenges, different projects or contracts. I hope it's not one size fits all. I mean, I'm sort of in the camp with your friend that you talked about first. I am not retired. I The thought of retiring, not from a financial perspective, but from a what am I going to do all day perspective, actually scares me a lot. But my husband is basically retired. He's a little bit older than me. He retired a few years ago. He's taking a course at our local university. He's playing a decent amount of tennis as he recuperates from an ankle injury. He's hanging out with our grandbaby. He's having a great time. He would like me to come along with him, and I'm just not there yet, and I don't know when I'll get there, but we
Yeah,
talk about it.
yeah, I know that feeling. So, Gene, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be back with more talk around Social Security and other things about retirement
Great.
planning. So don't go away. Welcome back to Decoding Retirement. I'm speaking with Jean Chatzky. She's the host of the Her Money podcast. Jean, earlier in the podcast, you were talking about figuring out how much income you need in addition to Social Security. Let's talk about Social Security, because right now we need to know whether we can count on it to cover whatever we were counting on it to cover, right? Which is in some
Right.
cases maybe 15% if you were in the high income quintile, or 85% if you're in the lowest income quintile, or 40% on average. How much should people count on Social Security, and what do they need to think about as 2033 comes and the trust fund becomes depleted?
I believe, and I think you believe, that the government will do something, that the government will do something to shore up Social Security benefits so that for the people who are already receiving Social Security and are close to receiving Social Security, they will get what they have been promised. I think if that doesn't happen, I fully expect that we will have riots in the street. And I think that the politicians in Washington know that. Do I wish that they would deal with this now rather than waiting 8 years to deal with it? 100%. I don't have confidence that it'll happen before it absolutely has to happen, but I do think that they will solve this problem. So if you are over 50, I think that you will get what you are expecting to get from Social Security. But if the government doesn't act, here's what's going to happen. You're not going to get nothing. And many people are under the impression that they're going to get nothing. If the trust fund is depleted, what it means is that the government is only allowed to pay out what it takes in payroll taxes. That amounts to basically about a 20% haircut on the benefits that you were anticipating. And so if you look at your Social Security statement and you think this government is not going to get its act together, then your move needs to be to try to save enough to account for a 20% gap in what you expected that you would receive. But I once again think that I think that the government will adjust for younger people. They'll make some sort of adjustment in the retirement age or how wages are taxed to shore up the system.
Yeah. So, from a practical perspective, using the math right now, average benefits are around $2,000 a month. If there's a 20% haircut, I'm looking at a $1,600 per month benefit, which means I have to make up $400 per month from something, presumably my 401k or IRA or taxable accounts or Roth IRAs. Is that sort of what you're suggesting? Is that I need to figure out how to make up that gap?
Yeah, exactly. Or working a little bit longer, right? Right now, many people still take Social Security benefits before they max out their Social Security benefits. And so one smart move is to make sure that you do everything that you can to get the absolute most from Social Security. I'm not arguing that people should wait to take benefits if they need to put food on the table or if they've got some sort of a health situation where they believe they're not going to um, live a very long time. In that case, you probably do want to take Social Security on the earlier side. But for most people, if you wait for every year you delay from age 62 to age 70, you get a bump in benefits of approximately 8% per year on what is the only inflation protected annuity out there. So this is it's a very, very smart thing to do if you can afford to do it.
Yeah. Speaking of living a long life, many people who are in their mid 60s or so can expect to live to into their 90s, perhaps. And when you think about the risk of longevity and the ways to manage longevity, Social Security is one of the most frequently noted tools. But others like QLACs and deferred income annuities and SPIAs, single premium immediate annuities, are things that can be used to manage it and mitigate the risk of longevity or outliving your assets.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I were an economist, which I am not, I would tell you that a QLAC or a deferred income annuity is a very, very affordable form of longevity insurance. So let's just take a step back because I know when people hear the word annuity, sometimes they put up their hands and they don't want to hear anymore. Annuities are, I think, very valuable tools in retirement. They allow insurance companies to essentially pool the risk of a lot of people and pay out those people who continue to live a long time at rates that are better than the rates that you can get on CDs, treasuries, and a lot of other fixed income products. A QLAC allows you to take some of the money out of your or take some of the money from within your retirement accounts, your IRAs or your 401ks, and use that money to buy a deferred annuity. People refer to it as longevity insurance. So you buy an annuity where the income's not going to turn on until you're 80 or 85. But if down the road you then need additional income to keep pace with long-term care expenses, healthcare expenses, or just simple inflation, this is a really affordable way to do it. And it saves taxes because the money doesn't have to come out in the form of required minimum distributions.
Yeah. I want to go back to milestones, something that we talked about in the first segment. And Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, other companies have put up retirement savings guidelines, how much money people need to have saved at age 40, 50,
Yep.
65. And some of these milestones are, if you're age 40, you might need 1.5 to 3 times your salary set aside. At age 50, 3.5 to 6. At age 60, 6 times to 11 times your current salary set aside for retirement in order to fund your desired lifestyle. Any thoughts about these guidelines and whether people should be using them?
I think they're helpful guidelines. I think you need to understand the math behind the guidelines. So Fidelity's guidelines, for example, and I'm not as familiar with T. Rowe's, but Fidelity's, which tap out at you want 10 times your current income at the time that you retire. Those guidelines were developed for people who make between $50,000 a year and $300,000 a year. And essentially, if you can get to that point, it will replace 80% of your final pre-retirement income in retirement. And so if that is something that you're aiming toward, knowing that you hit that 10 times mark is a very easy benchmark to grab onto and something to aim for. Now, I at various points in my career have tweeted out those benchmarks, and the internet has not been incredibly happy with me for doing so, because people who are very far away from those benchmarks, who look at them and get daunted. They think there is absolutely no way that I am ever going to hit that. But if you can get yourself to the point where you are putting away a consistent 15% of your income year in and year out for retirement, and that can include any matching dollars that you receive from an employer, you actually should hit those numbers. So take a step back. Think about your savings rate. Think about if your savings rate is high enough, and if it's not high enough, what you can do to bump it up in real time, and know that you're heading in the right direction.
All right, Jean, there's lots we didn't get to, but we've run out of time, unfortunately. So I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much for having me, Bob.
All right, and thank you all for watching. Check out more episodes of Decoding Retirement on your favorite podcast platforms, and we'll see you next time on Decoding Retirement.
This content was not intended to be financial advice and should not be used as a substitute for professional financial services.
Are you ready to master the markets and, dare I say, become a better leader in the process? Well, Yahoo Finance has you covered with our new full suite of original podcast content. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're just starting your financial journey, we offer invaluable market insights and strategies to help boost your portfolio, build your wealth, and make you a successful investor. Podcast that will make you a smarter investor.
Welcome to Stocks in Translation. I'm your host, Jared Blickery.
Welcome to Financial Freestyle.
Hi, I'm Bob Powell, and welcome to Decoding Retirement.
Welcome to Living Not So Fabulously.
Welcome to Trader Talk.
I'm Elizabeth Core. Welcome to The Big Idea.
Welcome to Yahoo Finance Sports Report.
Welcome to Word Money. I'm Patrick Murphy.
And I'm Dan Coons.
From Wall Street to Main Street to the C-Suite, we are your daily lifeline, because behind every great investor is Yahoo Finance. Join us on yahoofinance.com, the Yahoo Finance app, or wherever you get your podcasts.